Singapore has expressed its commitment to free and open trade against the backdrop of threats to the global multilateral trading system from protectionism. Minister in charge of Trade Relations S Iswaran made the comment in Brussels as the free trade agreement between the European Union and Singapore nears its final stages.
Now, the deal is expected to be signed off at the end of this year. Natalie Powell with this report.
Highlighting the important role businesses will have in giving value to a free trade agreement is one of the key messages at this roundtable event in the European Union capital, Brussels.
It is one thing to have agreements between countries, which in and of itself are important because they shape the overall architecture of our relationship. But it is really the businesses that enliven these agreements.
The EU-Singapore Free Trade Agreement, or EU-SFTA, is approaching the finishing line, having been approved by the European Parliament. And although it's been a long time in the making, both sides believe this could be the pathway to an eventual EU-ASEAN trade and investment agreement.
In ASEAN, you're seeing the rise of the middle class, which I think, combined with its greater spending power, is demanding the kind of goods and services which actually plays to the strengths of Europe.
The EU-Singapore FTA promises provisions for sustainable development, and one of those companies hoping to benefit is Keppel Sagers, a Singapore waste-to-energy company with a presence around the world, including here in Belgium.
Anything that promotes the movement of such goods, services is going to be helpful for our business. And I think the other thing that we're more focusing on is the alignment of standards. So Singapore, we do a bit of research, R&D, and then Europe, obviously the technology is having a lot of R&D activities. So as a technology player, standards is very important. So if we can align the standards of Singapore and also Europe, then you'll make our future projects a lot easier in terms of recognition worldwide.
But in order for any FTA to be successful, it must be promoted, particularly among small and medium-sized enterprises.
Historically, the Commission and the Member States haven't always coordinated very well in terms of promoting the benefits of any given trade agreement. This is the first agreement with a country in Southeast Asia. It's with a country with similar values, with a dynamic economy, and with substantial existing trade. I think it will be very remiss of either Singapore or the EU28 not to promote it.
The Minister in charge of trade insists that the agreement will be mutually beneficial for small and medium-sized enterprises. There are more than 10,000 EU companies in Singapore, and Singapore is the EU's largest trading partner in goods and services in all of the ASEAN region. So an FTA agreement is likely to strengthen those ties even further. But there's still one more step to go. The FTA needs the approval of the EU Council. It's hoped that events like these will go some way in getting that approval. Natalie Powell, CNA, Brussels.